What's going on, YouTubers, gamers and hobbyists? Welcome to Getting Started with Warhammer 40,000 Part 3. And little did I know it, this is turning into a bit of a series. That's okay. I didn't realise that the magazine was like a major starting point for getting newbies into the hobby, as it were. I thought it was a part of a series or something like that, but you know, that's okay. I can use this to my advantage. So we've had a brief overview of the magazine, and we'll go for it section at a time later on where to go from there. Today I want to concentrate on painting the miniatures. Now, don't get yourself too head up about having to paint miniatures to a really high standard or anything like that. And I don't want this video to be designed as a painting tutorial that much. I will paint these guys up in a really basic fashion, just to just to have some painted models on the table. True, we could just carry on without these, but it's much more fun if they are painted. My only question is what my something I've got to work out is what faction of Space Marine do I want to paint. It doesn't, and it really doesn't matter, you know. And it doesn't matter what colours you paint them. Ultramarines are the poster boys for Warhammer 40,000, I think. But that said, I've got more than enough Primaris Ultramarines, I think, whereas my other factions do not have. So it may be kind of fun to do a different faction. I don't know. As for my Necron here, not quite sure how I'm going to paint him. I've got kind of an idea. I don't know if I want him to be more kind of goldy or more kind of silvery. Yeah, I quite like what they've done. We'll have a look, but the first step is to prime them anyway. So let's get to the bench and see where we need to go next. Okay, so we've got our models here, and I've put them in these holders. You can either put them in there, or you can put them onto you can like blue tack them onto like bottle lids or whatever, little holders, anything that makes it easier for you to turn the model like around different angles and then get to different aspects of the model without touching the model itself. Now, this is Warhammer 40,000, so generally speaking, and it's plastic, so we don't really need, generally speaking, to wash the model. Some models you buy, some model kits, you will need to wash the models, and that's to get the mold remover, the mold line residue off. Some kits have particularly resin, have an oily substance to them that you need to wash off. Others, like some sort of metal kits, have sort of powdery residue that you need to brush off with a metal brush or something. But these, generally speaking, are ready to go. But the first thing before we do anything really we need to do is prime them. And now it depends on whether you're going to use what type of painting method you're going to be using. There's many different types out there. There's like traditional, and there's contrast, speed painting, slap chop painting they call it now, some of them, on some certain assets. But what we're going to look at is a traditional painting, because I'm just getting into the hobby, and how am I going to go about this? Well, first of all, then I'm going to prime them. Now, with primers you can get all manner of colours. In the old days you used to be able to get black and white. With black, that is very good for putting metallics and things like that on top of, so I'm probably going to use black for him. Lighter colours, greys and different things, more colourful, and possibly I could go with grey for the Space Marine. I may do. I haven't decided what faction to paint him yet, but we're definitely going to go with a black for the Necron here. So with that in mind, I am going to use some of this, which is Vallejo Surface Primer. Now these, you need a good shake up. You need to have a good shake. I'm just going to shake my paint get my stuff raring to go here, and I'm also going to bring over another primer too whilst I'm here. And I think for my Space Marine, I'm going to prime him grey. I may decide to do a combination of painting techniques here. Like I say, don't get too head up on what I'm doing here. I'm just going to do a basic quick paint job for them, and we'll take it from there. Obviously when it comes to the bases, I'll need to paint the rims at some point. I'll do that separately though. All I'm concentrating on now is the flat of the base and the model itself. So for my Necron, I'm going to be using black. So I'm going to pop some black primer into my palette here, and then I'm going to not thin it down. Oops, just move that one over there. Make sure you can see me. I've got my window open at the moment, and that's because it's hot. It's actually warm here. It's warm in Sydney today. There we go. Now I can see. I can't really see the camera because it's bright, it's blurry, it's glare from the sun coming in through the blinds here. So I'm just painting my miniature. As I say, with this primer, I'm not going to thin it down. You don't really need to. How you can do. And don't worry too much about having to have it covered in perfect coverage with a primer. It's a very basic covering we're looking for here. And I cover this in my airbrushing tutorials as well. So just going to cover him from head to toe in primer, including the flat of the base. So a lot of mechanical robotic parts, because these are robots. They're like space robots basically. So they got a whole story of how they became like that, because they weren't always. They were flesh and blood once, and that relates to something in what is known as the lore. An aspect of the lore about the Necron origins, how they came to being, what happened, why they've been asleep, why they're waking up now, and there we go. So once you've covered the model, you're going to want to wait, I don't know, 45 minutes for it to dry before you come back to it and start applying any sort of colours. Oh, there you go. So there's the Necron all primed up. Pop him to one side. The Space Marine here, it's going to be a little more tricky, and that's because grey primer. Actually, I'm going to use this primer. Grey primer bubbles more easily than black. The lighter you go, like from black to white, the really dark greys are not a problem. These lighter greys, they can pose a problem in terms of bubbling. So you gotta watch that. So I'm gonna pop some grey out into my palette. I think it might help things if I turn the blinds ever so slightly. That helps me. I don't know if it helps you. Move the camera slightly. Right. So again, I'm going to come in with this, but this time I've got to watch out for bubbling. And the way to do that is to keep going over the primer. That's if you're doing it by hand. If you're airbrushing, it's not so much of a problem. These primers are designed for airbrush as well. So just go over them. What I would normally do with models like this, particularly the Necron, because it's a push fit model, yeah, is fill in any gaps I come across with plastic putty or green stuff or something like that. But I don't want you to get too worried about that at this stage. We're just basically painting our models up. All you need is just somewhere to paint them, really. You want to put some newspaper down if you haven't got a cutting mat or a hobby mat or a table or something to work on if you're working at your kitchen table or something like that. You can just put some old magazines or newspaper down and paint over the top of that, you know. So I've got a table, I've got a cutting mat, and I've got a hobby mat on top of that. You can really hear the seagulls now because I've opened the window. It's because I live by the beach. Oh, I love that sound. I find it very therapeutic. Very therapeutic. Okay. Alright. So it's the same deal as with the Necron. Just covering it with your primer. If you see any bubbles, just go over it with the brush again until the bubble disappears, basically. Or bubbles, I should say. And again, same deal. It'll be about 45 minutes to dry. And then we can come back and we can start applying our base colours. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna show you some. I might do a combination of techniques, and this ordinarily it would be quicker to spray paint primer on either from a rattle can, which you can get. You don't have to use Games Workshop primer. I understand the need to want to use it though. I understand the need to want to use all the Games Workshop products, and they are good. You know, there's no getting away from it. But there are cheaper alternatives out there if you want to just save a little bit of money here and there. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with the products themselves. They are designed to be used with Games Workshop models. But a lot of primers can be used just as well. So whether you do that or you have an airbrush, which is unlikely being a beginner, not impossible. I jumped in quite early on with an airbrush because I used to watch people on YouTube doing some fantastic stuff with an airbrush, and I thought I want to copy that. I want to be a part of that. I want to emulate that technique that they're doing there. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so we have our Space Marine, and we have our Necron. They're all primed up now. Okay guys, so I've decided what faction I'd like to paint my Space Marine in, at least. I've decided to go for Dark Angels, so I'm going to need some greens for this. Now, when you're beginning and you want to do something like this, you're going to need to get yourself a few basic paints. And for this to begin with, what I recommend is just getting the ones you absolutely really need. Now, to be honest, you could just paint him green, because dark green is their main chapter colour, and you could do that to differentiate him between like him and a Necron, or him and maybe a blue Ultramarine, so you can see the difference. But you're going to gradually want to get some different paints to get going. Now you can buy big sets of paints, you can do that, but for the purpose of this, we're going to paint him as a Dark Angels, so I'm going to need a few basic colours. So I'm going to need a base colour, a wash of some description, and a kind of neutral colour like black, because these I think those are the three kind of basic ones you would need for your whatever faction or whatever you're painting. Your main base colour, a wash of some description, and maybe a black. You can use that to tidy up your bases and things like that. So let's pop him to one side. So Games Workshop wise, you'd be looking at a base colour of Caliban green there. I recommend a shade wash. Null Oil will be your main go-to. The other main go-to one would be Agrex Earthshade, but we're talking really basics. And then Abaddon Black would be the obviously the black, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to use Games Workshop paints. Let's zoom out a bit. So for greens, I've got a few other choices that are very similar to Caliban green. We've got a P3, which is Gnarls green. That's nice and dark. You've also got Game heavy black green. It's very opaque, that one though, so watch that one. But the war paints, Army Painter war paints, Angels green, and you can't get much more kind of obvious than that. So you don't have to be going around using the Games Workshop ones. For Null Oil, I have a couple of alternatives. You could use an ink instead of a wash. Inks were around long before shade washes, but if you want to wash, and the difference is how they react to the surface. We'll come on to that in another video perhaps, but just get yourself a game wash, black wash. It's very similar to Null Oil. I'm going to be using the Games Workshop products in this. For black, you've got different, black is black. At the end of the day, black is black. Doesn't really matter. Although this matte black is quite nice, but you can use that. But yeah, so all I'm going to do, and get yourself a basic brush for base painting. This is a Citadel base brush. It's flat. It's quite good. Cause I quite like it because it pushes the paint around at a greater surface area. And then I'll kind of use a more normal brush for my next layer or coat. We're going to do this really basically. We are going to, I'm going to get some Caliban green or dark green, Angel's green, whatever I'm going to use. I'm going to paint him over with that. Then I'm going to put a wash over it, and then I'm going to just, with the wash, you can either do a recess wash. Now what that means is, you see his, let's zoom in a bit here. You see, like on his knees there, if you was to go in here into the recesses, into these recesses here, and underneath, that's what they call a recess wash, and then tidy up. Or if you want to make it easier for yourself, you can wash the whole model in null oil, and then just tidy up that way. Just go over the main areas with your green, like your patches, and then just leave the recesses. That's what I'm going to use for this Space Marine, because it's a more basic technique, and I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to get, you don't need to see me slap paint on him, but that's what I'm going to do. And then I might use some Abaddon Black for maybe a couple of other bits, or I might use matte black for his armor recesses. I might do that. We'll come back to that once we're done, and we'll see where we are. Right, now what I have done to this here is simply the base coat green. I've literally done 2 thin coats of Caliban green. I've covered it, and I've just applied a null oil wash. Okay, so I've done that. Now on the Necron, I have done 2 thin coats of a lead belcher, which is this paint here, silver. 2 thin coats of lead belcher, and again a null oil wash. And already he's looking pretty great. He looks like a metallic robot Terminator, basically. So at this stage, you could have, let's just zoom out slightly here. You know, at this stage they are already differentiated between each other, I feel. Now what I'm going to do with the Space Marine, I'm going to touch up all the areas that are not the recesses. Now I could do that with Caliban green. I'm going to do it with the Angels green from Army Painter, because it's ever so slightly, just ever so slightly lighter, which will then accentuate the dark recesses more. So that's what I'm going to do with him, and I'm going to finish up some bits and bobs on him. As for the Necron, primarily he's going to be the silver metallic. I'm going to put some more goldy colours on him later, and I'm going to see to the gun as well, as I will on the Space Marine, and then it'll be done. But what you do, but this is already at a stage where you could happily play, and you'd know who was who. I don't know if you'd see it so well in this light. Get some more light on, but you know, green and silver, you know, you'd know who was who on the battlefield, rather than just grey plastic. I think that looks good. Imagine it with the bases painted black, or whatever colour you want to do them, and you'll be good to go. I think you'd be good to go with that. And then what you can do over time, you can think to yourself, well, say you had a collection of, I don't know, a dozen Space Marines and these Necron warriors or whatever. Think, right, I think I'll do some work on the guns now, or his holster thing here. Perhaps I could get some silver, or I could get some brown, or I could get some whatever colour I want his gun to be. You know, you just get that and just do them all like in a in a production line fashion, doing it that way. And I'm a big fan of that, and not everybody is. Yeah, I mean the washes are still wet on these guys at the moment, so I can't go any further with that. But as for the models, well, when we come back, I'll have finished them up to a rough tabletop standard. See, I'm gonna pick out little details like his purity seal on his leg there. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. See that seal on his leg? That's a very important part of Space Marine culture. So I'm gonna do that, the wax seal and the parchment, you know, little things like that. And then you know, when we come back, we'll delve into the rest of the magazine, see where we're going to go from here. All right, we've got a miniature of each side now, but where do we go from here? That's what I'd like to know. So perhaps you could join me in the next episode. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it. If you like this journey of being a beginner, and we're indulging all our different options of where to go. Because if you're a beginner, you don't know, so you'd be relying on this magazine entirely for your direction. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the route I'm going to go down, and we'll take it from there. So thanks for watching, guys. Remember, all brushes lead to war, and I'll see you on another video. Bye for now, folks. Bye bye.